the pressure for intimacy and fostering those one-on-one relationships. If you're in the mood, are you with glass half full or glass half empty people? What are you passionate about? These are all pressures and questions for this cycle of the Human Design weather for August 22nd to 28th, 2025. Hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather as a certified human design professional through the International Human Design School and an intuitive coach. I'm on a mission to help you know, live, and love your true nature. With this cycle, we're sticking with the sacral and solar plexus centers for our sun-earth activations, but we're out of the abstract experiential pressure and into a combination of tribal and individual traits. So let's dive in. This cycle begins August 22nd at 5:41 p.m., going until August 28th at 1:33 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates that starting August 22nd at 11:41 p.m., going until August 28th at 7:33 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the sun-earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. So here we go. We have the sun moving into gate 59, the trait of sexuality in the sacral center, that motor that generates life force energy. This is part of the tribal circuitry with its underlying theme of mutual support. So the themes of feeling supported or not could be amplified this cycle. Its keynote says the ability to break down barriers to achieve union. This is part of the channel of mating, also called the channel of intimacy. Your genes have a built-in genetic strategy to determine who to intimately partner with for reproduction, who to make more with. We've got two parts of our genetic circuitry. One is about making more of us. And on the other side of the chart, we have, okay, we made them. Now we have to care for them. So here we're on the reproductive end. So it's literally about producing children, but it also carries a creative fertility. So reproducing in more creative ways as well. Part of that genetic strategy lies in its electromagnetic partner, gate 6, in the emotional center, which puts up barriers to intimacy. Your reproductive genes want you partnering not just with anyone, but with someone who's different enough to enhance the overall gene pool. This is not about your I am and that type of thing. You know, do they fit that way? This is, are they a fit for genetic reproduction? Gate 59, this trait of sexuality provides the genetic imperative to break down the barriers that gate 6 puts up. Break down those barriers to intimacy and achieve that union. It could be through pursuing. It could be through a shyness, boldness. It could be through more adventurous experimenting. Could be through being friends first. Could be through seduction or something to do with trust and finding that soulmate. Those of you that have done my Decoding Your Design for Intimacy programs, you're going to know what that is for you. So it's built into each of us, even if you don't have this trait activated in your chart. Now, touch is very important to the tribe. It's a way of communicating without words. So you may find that you're more open or more closed to touch in this particular cycle. The potential opportunity this trait brings is to be able to move past the barriers with another. This is really geared to those one-on-one relationships to achieve a more intimate relationship. Whether that's sexual, whether that's friendship, whether that's a business partnership, and to create together. Again, there's this creative fertility there that this energy can bring to you. The caution here is that As I mentioned, that genetic imperative to make more has absolutely nothing to do with the I am essence of yourself or of the other. The fact that it's electromagnetic, gate 6 is in the emotional center, is a really clear sign, let's say, that finding those right fits takes time. It takes time to determine if a relationship can really satisfy the wholeness of you and not just the reproductive genes. So be careful about jumping into a partnership in these frequencies and the sense of intimacy that it's going to bring. This gate 59 is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 55, the trait of spirit and abundance in the solar plexus center, the emotional center. This is a motor that's generating the ups and downs of the emotional wave. And it's also an awareness center. It's our emotional awareness. Maybe we could call it our emotional intelligence. This trait's part of the individual circuitry that operates in a pulse of knowing and can bring mutation, something new, something empowering in being uniquely you. Its keynote says abundance is strictly a question of spirit. This is a representation of the glass half full people and the glass half empty people. What dictates that? It's your emotional spirit. This is the emotional center. Emotionality goes up and down. Because it operates in a pulse, you can even find that sometimes you're a glass half full person looking at the bright side, and sometimes you're a glass half empty person and more pessimistic. And really, neither is right or wrong unless you get stuck at one end with the mind grabbing onto a perspective. I've got to stay here. I've got to be happy all the time, for example, and not allowing the natural movement between the polarities. But going deeper into this trait is the, wow, there's a glass. And the glass is always there. The spirit may be soaring or it may be crashing, but it's always there. Your spirit can bring passion or dispassion. What are you passionate about? That's something that you might contemplate this cycle. It operates in a pulse that creates a spike wave. So generally this trait, its emotionality can actually seem very even, almost even kind of cold. And then when it's triggered, it can spike way up or way down. Sometimes people think it only spikes down. It can also spike way up into joy and enthusiasm. It is probably the most volatile of all the emotional gates. So it's going to bring a moodiness to this cycle. It brings the potential for big highs and big lows. The potential opportunities that it brings are to gain clarity on your passions, what you love and what you don't. This gate is rooted in a social quality, even though it's individual, right? Mutation, the mutative circuitry needs to bring it out to others. So finding people that fill your cup rather than empty your cup or bring you down. This is something that may come more to awareness in this particular cycle. This is a time when people who are a bit more knowledgeable than you, a bit more experienced, that have that glass half full optimistic outlook could help to pull you up to a higher level. This trait can bring a romantic quality if you're in the mood. The cautions, well, the polarity is true too. Being around glass half empty people may pull you down further. With this being an emotional trait, be careful that you're not making a decision in the spike up or down that this activation can bring. Like all individual traits, it can drop into melancholy around feeling empty. I don't know what my passion is. So it is possible that you or people around you could drop into melancholy this cycle. If that happens, it's just the biochemistry of the trait, of any of the individual traits. So don't make yourself wrong about it. It's just, again, this biochemistry. This is a very, very acoustic trait. So listening to music that you're in the mood for could be helpful. and try to channel that melancholy if it occurs into something creative. If you have this gate in your own design, your mood is going to have a big impact on when you can eat, work, be social, and so on. Someone with gate 55 should never be forced to eat when they're not in the mood. It's the kind of thing that could create eating disorders down the road. And because it operates in a pulse, there can be this very fickle quality to this trait. What you're in the mood for one moment could be different than another moment. When we look at these Sun Earth activations together, intimacy and sexuality, and who you may want to partner with on a creative endeavor may be influenced by mood. You may gain that awareness in relationship of who generally lifts your mood, lifts your spirit, and who doesn't. Romance may be brought to ways in which barriers are broken down. This combination also brings a reminder that there needs to be a place for individuality within the tribe. This is kind of looking at the bigger picture of this in order to keep the gene pool healthy. All right, let's move on to our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving the activation of the related traits and qualities. It impacts everyone in the world one way or another. You have it or you're going to get it through the transit field. We have 3 channels, but they're all being created by transits of the moon this cycle. So they're just little tasters, little samplers, because the moon only activates a trait or a gate for about 10 to 11 hours, give or take. So I'll walk through these briefly. The first is coming in on August 23rd at 8:35 p.m., going until August 24th at 7:13 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's starting August 24th at 2:35 a.m., going until 1:13 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 64, the trait of confusion in the head center, with its pressure to think, and in this case, to make sense of experiences. It's connecting with gate 47, the trait of oppression and realization in the Ajna center, being activated by the south node of the moon. Together, they create the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity. This is a collective abstract channel bringing that mental pressure to make sense by putting the puzzle pieces together to determine how an experience fits into the movie of your life. It's a tough process and it takes time to get clarity and then get those ahas, which is why gate 47 is both oppression and realization. This is the start of the mental abstract making sense process. As the keynote says, it brings a busy mind and a reminder that any decisions that you make should be from your strategy and authority, not from your mind. We refer to the mind as an outer authority. It's here to support others through what you make sense of, understand, and know. All right, next up, August 24th at 5:56 a.m., going until August 25th at 4:45 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's starting August 24th at 11:56 p.m., going until August 25th at 10:45 a.m. We have the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction with that moon moving into gate 6, the trait of conflict and friction in the emotional center, connecting with the sun's position. That gate 59 we just talked about, the trait of sexuality in the sacral center. So part of the tribal circuitry, that theme of mutual support or not is going to be there. This channel brings the pressure to reproduce literally and figuratively. It has a frequency that is very, very penetrating and can open others to intimacy, kind of pull them in to intimacy. Or it can be very uncomfortable for others. So sometimes it actually creates some friction there. You may find that you're more open or more closed to intimacy when this is present. You may crave having more one-to-one time with another rather than being in groups. There is this opportunity it brings for creative fertility and enhancing intimacy. The caution here, well, this connection to the emotional center, once again, means that it does take time to establish intimacy with another, whether it's at the level of a mate, a friend, or a business partner. In any relationship, there's going to be conflict and friction. It can bring growth and evolution to the relationship as you work through it, or it can bring devolving to that relationship. This is also the channel that needs to be present for literal fertility to occur. Last channel coming in August 26th at 1:46 p.m., going until August 27th at 12:57 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC starting August 26th at 7:46 p.m., going until the 27th at 6:57 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 57, the trait of intuitive insight in the splenic center, connecting with Uranus position, gate 20, the trait of the now, of contemplation in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of the brainwave, a design of awareness. It's a place where the intuitive insights that come through an acoustic knowing in the now, in that gate 57, that splenic center is our most primal awareness center, can now have access to the throat to be expressed through that gate 20, that trait of the now. The expression that can flow through here is what you know in the now. I know, blah, 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 now. The caution, as with all traits that have access to the throat, is the pressure that will be there to just blurt out what you know, which tends to result in blurting out to the wrong people at the wrong time. It goes unrecognized then. It tends to be dismissed rather than following your strategy and authority for the right timing that will then express out to the right people. That brings us to our long-term transits, where we don't have any changes from the end of last cycle other than Jupiter changing lines. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. And so your not self mind may start to think that they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. And then when that transit moves on, that can be confusing to the not self mind. So like last cycle, the north and south nodes of the moon are sitting in gates 22, the trait of grace and disgrace in the emotional center, and the gate of oppression and realization in the ajna center. We just talked about that in the channel of abstraction. They remain in line 2. The north node of the moon in that gate 22 is the individual trait of grace and disgrace. It brings attentive listening or not, and openness or closeness to social interaction. It's in line 2 called Charm School, with a developmental theme that says the belief that style can mask nature. It brings an environment where we may really see this real attentiveness to each other and openness in socializing, although the substance of the talk itself is likely to be more superficial. However, it can still open up opportunities, especially to meet new people. Or, since we most often see the detriments play out in the collective, it's an environment where we may see people getting attention, but it's actually closing off interaction instead of opening it. Well, like, you see them, but yeah, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to interact with them. Gate 47, that collective trait of realization and oppression in the ajna center in line 2, is called ambition. It's bringing an environment that's going to be busy. People keeping busy in the present so they don't have to deal with the making sense process, making sense of the past. The question then is what you're being busy with of value? Line 2 has a natural capacity to it. It's also the hermit, so it can have this antisocial quality, but the making sense process will work itself out. It's healthy to be mentally busy. Let your strategy and authority guide you. Jupiter, with its quality of expansion, is sitting in gate 53, the trait of beginnings and development. It moved into that trait towards the end of last cycle. That's in the root center. It's another one that's part of the abstract experiential circuitry and brings the pressure to begin a new experience and the potential to see that experience through to the end. It's moved into line 2 that's called momentum. And it has a developmental theme that matures over time that says success breeds success. Now, second lines project out the capacity. So it's projecting out the capacity to begin. It's going to flow that through us. But it doesn't mean that that's actually the case, which is why we call second lines kind of a paper tiger. They might be ready to actually do it, or maybe not. The exaltation says the protection of early success nurtures further achievement. The pressure to start something new based on past success. So as that line 2 is projecting out that it is ready to start something new and see it through, that can actually open up opportunities to do so. And if successful, moving through it, completing it, there's going to be more confidence in one's ability to go through another experience. Success breeds success. The detriment says a tendency with early success to haste and imprudent action. The pressure based on success to be impatient for something new. Here, rather than waiting for that correct right next thing that one can start and see through, that's a very important part, there's a jumping into that new too soon and potentially then not being successful, not being able to see that experience through to its end. Going into an experience out of correctness, following strategy and authority, and seeing it through to completion, so that maturing and growth process is really what's fundamental to this trait. But here in the detriment, jumping too soon, not being able to see it through to the end, not getting that growth and maturing. Jupiter's expanding this pressure to start a new experience. Maybe it's going to open new opportunities to go through an experience, but it could also have you stepping out of an experience that you're in right now without bringing it to completion, so that you don't get that growth and development and then rushing into something new just out of this pressure. And if you can't see it through to completion, again, you're in this cycle of not getting the growth and development, and you just keep repeating the same old pattern over again, the same old cycle over again. Jupiter is expanding this pressure to start a new experience. Maybe that will open new opportunities to do so through this line too. But it could also have you jumping into something new out of the pressure. Maybe you're already in an experience that you need to see through to completion, and then not having the ability to see the new experience through because you rushed. It was too hasty, not allowing your strategy and authority to guide you. So something to watch there. Saturn and Neptune, both still sitting in gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, innocence, and universal love, or the polarity. Neptune sitting in line 4, Saturn sitting in line 3. Neptune's helping you to maintain your nature of true innocence regardless of circumstances, although it could veil this somewhat, or it could unveil it. Can you sit within the void of the unknown within you and just be present to what is? Saturn, with its limitations, consequences, discipline, has moved into line 3 called sensibility, that says the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. Perhaps Saturn will limit both the power of the spirit to withstand shock and the loss of spirit through shock. Again, both polarities can be there. Saturn's a more serious energy, so it could come across as, hey, if you can't be sensible, if you can't understand that there can still be outcomes that you may consider unsuccessful, even though your action was innocent, there's going to be consequences, right? It's pointed at the ego center, the heart center. If the ego starts to get involved and, oh, I'm a failure because it didn't work out, yeah, it could bring depression with a loss of spirit. At the same time, Saturn, with its discipline, could really support the power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock. That could be enhanced if you're being sensible. Together, Saturn and Neptune could give a quality of be sensible, and your ability to be that spiritual warrior and withstand the shock of what Neptune unveils will be there. That could be very empowering. or what Neptune unveils could drive that loss of spirit deeper and really disempower with a complete inability to handle the shock and failure. Uranus, with its unusualness, its rebellion, its revolutionary nature, is sitting in gate 20, another individual trait in the throat center, the trait of contemplation and now, which we saw in one of our channels. It's a very existential gate, probably our most existential gate, with the voice of I am now. It's sitting in line 2, called the dogmatist. That's a person who really expresses their opinions in a strong and inflexible way. This is the truth. And are very resistant to considering alternative perspectives. It's quite narrow. Line 2s are always selective, so it brings a narrow perspective in the now, not necessarily being able to see everything that's out there in the periphery, and then taking what's in the now as that's the way it is. With this line 2, it's also the line of the hermit. There can be this kind of withdrawing if others are trying to open them to a new perspective, and a tendency to just want to be around those who will pay attention to that dogmatic perspective. It can also bring the possibility to lead people in their survival and well-being process. That's part of this line 2 as well. But it's going to be a very narrow and specific path. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That's about specialization. So if you've got to learn something in a specialty area, wow, to find someone who's got this or to have that come through you can be very helpful. It can also, though, come across as, I know what's good for you right now. Yeah, well, second line, maybe, maybe not. So there's kind of this my way or the highway quality here. Uranus can bring an unusual perspective to you, kind of adding into this dogmatic perspective, unusual and narrow. You might find yourself, as this flows through you, expressing that. Just be aware in that case that you're not likely seeing the full picture. If you're in a specialty area, this could really be helpful. That unusual quality or revolutionary quality that Uranus brings to it could really help you out into articulating what you know now in your specialty area in a way that's really, really helpful. Pluto brings that inner truth and rules the larger cosmic cycles. We saw in our last cycle, there was a big gate change there as it retrograded back into gate 60 and the root center, the individual trait of limitation and acceptance. It's in line 6, called rigidity. It does bring a frequency that can help accept limitations that you come up against, not try to push through them unless you can see that it really, really can bring something mutative. Individual wants to bring through a mutation. Real change can happen here. We can really break out of the same old, and into something new. Or there could be this sense of being really agitated. This is related to the adrenals, being agitated, maybe even feeling depressed in being limited. It's like, you have to hold back, you have to be restrained until you can see that mutation can really happen. But I hate this. I hate having to hold back. I hate that I can't break through. Okay. Overall, this cycle, the combination of the long-term transits and the Sun-Earth positions is really bringing a focus to the individual and abstract experiential traits, but being expressed through the Sun's tribal activation. So those one-on-one interactions that can bring intimacy may be about sharing personally and about experiences. If the mood is open, there can be a real attentiveness and being present to the other. At the same time, we do have quite a few line 2s present in the long-term transits, which can be antisocial. It's line of the hermit. Once again, it's also selective. So there can be this selectivity about who and what you want to engage with that this quality can bring. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You can learn from it, but whether there's actually something for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it just puppet you. All right. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the geometric shapes, a bit of background on the system, you're welcome to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human hyphen design. Okay, so this is a cycle where you could be more open or more closed to intimacy and have the opportunity to foster deeper one-on-one relationships in whatever context that may be. Just remember to take your time. The pressure from the reproductive genes does not mean that there's an overall alignment with your I am self. Expect the moodiness with both the Earth's position in gate 55 and the north node of the moon in gate 22, both in the same stream. You'll get insights perhaps on who tends to be the glass half full people in your life. And with the pressure to start something new and break out of the old, watch that you're not jumping into something out of this pressure rather than your strategy and authority. All right. Have a great cycle, and may you know, live, and love the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.